to take you by surprise. I always do. Good evening. I'm going to call the San Gabriel regular city council meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance today will be led by Vice Mayor Wu.
Everybody raise and please place your hands on your heart. Follow after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ding is unable to attend tonight's meeting. Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Harrington,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wu,
Here.
Councilmember Chan,
Here.
Councilmember Menchaca. Here.
All right, closed session report. Our city attorney will now give a closed session report from the special meeting held earlier tonight.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, council members. One item was considered by the council in closed session. It was potential litigation, one case. No reportable actions were taken by the council.
Thank you. We'll now have some announcements from our chief city clerk.
Tonight's meeting is live streamed on the city's online platforms. If you wish to address the city council during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to receive city council agendas, please sign up on the city's website.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda order. Do we have any objections to the agenda order, or is everybody okay with it? All right, seeing none, the the agenda order is approved. Next item, please.
Presentation, 2023 San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments Update. San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments Administrative Services Manager Katie Ward will make the presentation.
All right, testing. All right, good evening, Mayor Harrington and members of the City Council. My name is Katie Ward. I am the Admin Services Manager at the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. I'm joined with Melissa Trong, our senior accountant in the back, and we're really excited to be here today. We are giving this presentation to all 31 of our cities in the San Gabriel Valley. I think San Gabriel's number 4, so golden star for being early in the process. And I'm personally really excited to be here because I'm a resident of Alhambra, border of San Gabriel and Alhambra, and my husband is a teacher at McKinley Elementary, not too far from here. So really deep connection to this community. To start off, what we do at the COG can be broken down into these 4 different categories, and we'll go briefly through each of our programs. And these categories encompass meeting common needs, local answers, quality of life, and neighbors first. So meeting common needs. This really encompasses the programs that we implement to help our agencies meet regulations that come down from the legislature, but don't always have funding associated with it. One program I want to highlight is the City of San Gabriel participates in is our food recovery program, where legislation known as SB 1383 requires food waste to be recovered, and we really try to support that by making sure that as much edible food can be donated to the appropriate ways. So we're really proud of this program and appreciate San Gabriel's participation in it. Next, local answers. Something we are very proud of is that we have a really good ability to secure a lot of state and federal funding. And one of the examples with the City of San Gabriel actually is that we received a federal earmark through Congresswoman Judy Chu. Sorry, the slides are slightly different than what I have, but there was a picture of a check presentation by Congresswoman Judy Chu for an affordable housing project that we're doing through our Regional Housing Trust on Del Mar Avenue. And the really interesting thing about this project is that it was land that was acquired as a part of the grade separation that we did back in 2018 that was completed. So it's kind of full circle, all the different kind of programs we do with construction, and then now turning it back to affordable housing is really great. Moving on to our next category, quality of life. We do so many different programs that help city staff and kind of our cities, but there's also so many different programs we do that actually benefit residents and we didn't directly implement. One I want to highlight is our Open Streets program that we do with funding we get through LA Metro. This program allows us to have one-day events where we close the streets and open it up to communities. And one that we did in partnership with the city of San Gabriel, Alhambra, and South Pasadena was a mission-to-mission event back in May of last year. And this is an event, I think that was the second time we did it, and it was really great, and we want to do it again, and I'm happy to provide an update that Metro released the next cycle of funding, and we actually applied for 2 events to do mission to mission again, one in 2024 and then one in 2025, so we're really excited to be able to do those events more frequently, because they're a lot of fun. All right, our last category of programs is Neighbors First. And this program really is the concept of making sure that we put our most vulnerable neighbors first by making sure there's access to jobs, homes, and care for everyone in the San Gabriel Valley. And one of the programs that San Gabriel participates in is our homeless programs. We partner with the Los Angeles Centers for Alcohol and Drug Abuse, or LA CADA for short, who do homeless outreach services within the city. And then moving on to our accomplishments, we secured $74 million just last year in federal, state, and county funding to support all of the projects and programs that we're talking to you tonight. And then just moving on to those accomplishments, it's too many to list and don't want to take too much of your time, but I do want to just highlight one that's I'm really excited about is that we relaunched our Go SGV bike share program. This program we do in partnership with Active SGV is to provide long-term bike rental, e-bike rentals, so that residents have access to these devices. And I think it's really exciting because the bikes are very expensive, $2,000 and $4,000 depending on the model you get. But residents, if you're a San Gabriel Valley resident, you have access to, it only costs about $40 a month. I think we have a special where it's normally $80, but $40 for our summer special. So it's a really great program per month to try out an alternative mobility option. And in fact, my husband, who I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, he actually uses this to commute from our home in Alhambra to his school, which is about 1.5 miles. Otherwise, we would have had to get some other form of transportation, so it's really an affordable option to not buy another car, but actually have access to this. So it's really a program we're proud of and really appreciate Active SGV's partnership to make this program possible. And then looking ahead, we have a lot of exciting things planned. The one I want to highlight on this slide is that talking about that regional food recovery hubs that we're planning to do. The city of San Gabriel is one of 12 cities that we're working in to establish these to make sure that we have access to for organizations that are required to make sure they donate food and have these centers available. And then moving on to our second to last slide is we're really looking forward to expanding our SGV Care Mobile Crisis Program. 3 additional cities will be completing 60 energy reviews through our Efficient SGV program, and then we'll finally be completing the Diamond Bar Golf Course project at the end of the year, and then reopening the course to the public. So happy to see that happen. And that is all I have for you here today. So thank you so much for being here, letting us take some time out of your day to give updates on our programs. Really appreciate it. Really just want to, in closing, thank our COG board representatives, Councilmember Menchaca and Councilmember Ding for always participating on our different committees and boards, and then also thank City Manager Mark Lazaretto for being a longstanding member of our City Manager's Steering Committee. Really appreciate your engagement and support, and always here to help you do anything, so thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Do any questions?
Thank you for mentioning Councilmember Ding. He is the lead. I'm the alternate. But I did have, I was fortunate enough to go this past Thursday for the meeting. Councilmember Ding was not able to attend. And I just want everyone to know what a well-run group and what a great opportunity to really collaborate together. You can tell that everyone there really wants to work together as a region. And so I'm just so happy that San Gabriel is part of that team. And so thank you so much also for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words.
All right, thank you. No more questions? We're good, thank you.
Great, thank you.
All right, next item, please.
Public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the City Council on items of interest that are not on the agenda but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the San Gabriel City Council. If If you wish to address the council, please fill out a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk. Our first comment this evening comes from Michael Schutz, resident, and reads as follows. I strongly oppose the City Council voting to give taxpayer funds to the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce because one of the activities of local chambers is to lobby for business-friendly policies, according to the website of the California Chamber of Commerce. That means that at least some of the public funding can be used to pay for lobbying, either directly or by freeing up other local chamber monies to do so. I believe it is wrong to force taxpayers to help pay for lobbying for policies with which they probably disagree. That undoubtedly includes many, if not most, of the 8,798 city's voters who were registered Democrats and many of the 6,073 who had no party preference in September 2022. Also, according to City Councilwoman Menchaca's latest online newsletter, Mayor Harrington did not recuse himself from voting for the motion to fund the chamber after confirming that his adult children who live with him are getting paid by the chamber. That may not be technically illegal under state law, but clearly is a major conflict of interest because he undoubtedly would not like his children to lose their jobs or get paid less. And if the city does not give funds to the Chamber of Commerce, even if they do not directly pay their salaries, they may be let go or have their income substantially reduced if other chamber income is insufficient to do so. So he should not vote to provide such funding. I have lived in San Gabriel since early 1989 and am a voter. The next comment comes from Sonia Martin and reads as follows. My name is Sonia and I am a resident of Arcadia for 20 years. I became aware of news reports regarding the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce apparent mismanagement of funds and have been watching your council meetings for updates on this story. I am interested as our mayor, Paul Chang, is mentioned in these news stories, and I like to stay informed on what Arcadia council members are doing. As I was watching the recent meeting, I was completely shocked at what Mayor Harrington said about the reporter/citizen journalist and the ex-chamber members who spoke at the last council meeting who are sounding the alarm on the chamber's financial situation. Mayor Harrington, you said the following. Behind the scenes, inside info stuff is simply meant to smear the chamber and make it look bad. It's a smear job. It's not media, it's online blogging, in my opinion. The media is one person and that is their opinion. It doesn't mean it's true. Mayor Harrington, why are you gaslighting your constituents? The chamber is $78,000 in the red according to their own board. Is that a fact or a smear? The chamber had many of its members resign. The resignation letters tell why from their own words. Is that a fact or a smear? Are you saying all those people resigned in order to create a smear campaign? The chamber took money from businesses for 2 events that were canceled and did not give refunds. They kept money without providing the intended service. Is that a fact of a smear? The chamber seems to have blocked an audit. Is that a fact or a smear? The chamber took a $180,000 SBA loan. Is that a fact or a smear? This is not good as the mayor wants us to think it is. It means the chamber is in the negative on top of owing $180,000 and on top of scrambling to apply for grants on top of losing most of the board. Red flags everywhere. In my opinion, it looks like some of you are trying to cover for the chamber by ignoring the red flags, and one must ask why. And the chamber treasurer who spoke telling you all that their bookkeeper does an audit every month seems misleading. A monthly reconciliation is not an audit. Bookkeepers don't typically do monthly audits, and for transparency reasons. Audits should be done by an outside person, not the one who does the monthly bookkeeping. I believe the city should help the chamber, but not before getting to the bottom of what is happening financially. And if you pay the membership fee, sign a service agreement. I am not a resident of San Gabriel, but I can't stand by and watch elected officials discredit citizens and their own colleagues who are sounding an alarm that some of you seemingly don't want to hear. Thank you for your time. The next comment is from Chastity Jennings Nunez, resident, and reads as follows. To our city council members and city manager, Smith Park is San Gabriel's oldest public green space. Over 25 years ago, the city made an intentional decision to pay homage to the Gabrielino tribe at Smith Park. The term neocolonialism has been attached to the process that led to the initial approval to move forward with changes to Smith Park. In particular, the blatant disregard for the concerns expressed by members of San Gabriel's indigenous community about this project follows the same pattern of treatment that indigenous communities have been subjected to for over 2 centuries. Land and park features that educate and celebrate their history were dedicated to the Gabrielino people in the current design of Smith Park. So when tribal leaders request a government-to-government meeting that is not honored, it is very reminiscent of the many promises made to Native Americans and indigenous groups that were then ignored when they became inconvenient for our government. Second, concerning the decision to move forward with Chamber of Commerce membership, there has been incredible reporting by a local community member to provide us with information that has not been fully negated by the Chamber. At the last meeting, it was revealed that Mayor Harrington's family members directly derive income from positions with the Chamber. As city officials, we all sat through 2 hours of Brown Act orientation. Everything that is legal is not ethical, and the public perception of a politician's family members working and receiving income from an organization that would now benefit from his vote by receiving tens of thousands of dollars from the city is not favorable. Finally, dumplings and beer has become an incredibly successful event in our city. Starting last year, AYC has been elevated to a partner for the event. How and why was AYC offered this partnership and elevation above all other nonprofits in the city? What active participatory value is required for this partnership? Is it a financial partnership that reduces the over $30,000 expense to the city? Is there an MOU? How do other local nonprofits request partnerships with city events to elevate and highlight their work? Can La Casa, a San Gabriel nonprofit for over 75 years, request to partner with the city for the Dia de los Muertos event? Can our San Gabriel Educational Foundation partner with the Trunk or Treat event? The days of handshake agreements between our city government and local organizations should be over. Our residents are rightfully demanding transparency and equal treatment. As the HERE Commission finds ways to activate residents' participation in city government, that participation should be welcomed and valued. The next comment comes from Cheryl Cabot, resident, and reads as follows. First, in response to Mayor Harrington calling my articles a blog is blatantly wrong. I do not write a blog. I write for ColoradoBoulevard.net, a highly regarded, respected, and widely read newspaper. You are obviously reading it if you know about my articles. Secondly, regarding the right to public records, The People's Business, A Guide to the California Public Records Request, Chapter 3, Local Agencies' Duty to Respond to Public Records Requests. The fundamental purpose of the PRA is to provide access to information about the conduct of the people's business. Since giving $23,000 to the Chamber is most certainly the people's business, and records were sent to City Hall, then making a public records request and receiving said records is legal. Regarding conflict of interest, CA attorney Rob Bonta's website states, conflict of interest laws are grounded on the notion that government officials owe paramount loyalty to the public and that personal or private financial considerations on the part of government officials should not be allowed to enter the decision-making process. A conflict of interest occurs when an individual's personal interests, family, friendships, financial, or social factors could compromise his or her judgment, decisions, or actions in the workplace. With these in mind, since Mayor Harrington's daughters are getting paid by the San Gabriel Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber has business before the City Council, this is an obvious conflict of interest. As an attorney, Mayor Harrington, I thought you would be aware of these regulations. Our first speaker in person is Li Ping Chen.
She need, I'd better speak first because we are together. My name is Sam. Yeah, okay. She needs a Chinese, Cantonese translation to English. Yeah, my name is Sam Guo. I have been the U.S. citizen for more than 30 years, and I worked in the military industry as a senior research and develop engineer. I have two topics. One is the parking lot. One is the parking ticket. Let me talk up, they are related, and one is the other reason. And let me talk about the parking ticket first. And about 2 weeks ago, I drove in the old Gold something plaza that's in the Valley Road, off Valley Road, across the 88 seafood restaurant. And Li Ping Chen is a passenger. She is handicapped seriously. And on that day, while I was in that place, she felt urgent need for urination. So I looked around, all of the parking store, including the few handicapped parking store, were occupied. There's no empty. So there's no place to park. So I stopped there to unload her. And while I stopped, a ticket writer came up in front of us before anyone get off the car and snap pictures and so on. Anyway, she's in urgent needs, and my wife held her get out of the car while I was sitting on my seat, driver's seat. The engine was still running. After she get off the car and I drove away immediately, the whole stop time is about 30 seconds, not very long, but I got a ticket, parking ticket. And I pointed to Ms. Chen. I said, she is handicapped, and he is in urgent need to urination. And that guy said, I do not care. The root cause for this parking ticket is the parking lot. The city council didn't arrange enough handicapped parking store. We had the handicapped play card, but we couldn't find the parking space. When I go down to the parking lot, I saw more than half of the parking space were empty. Why there are so many empty spaces without handicapped parking store? This is a problem. Serious or not? For handicapped, it is serious. For me, really not that serious. I just want two issues. One is dismiss my ticket. It's unfair for this situation, under this situation. Yeah, the ticket writer should show mercy to this kind of handicapped person. And secondly, I would the city council to do something, to do some more work on the parking structure, parking lot arrangement for handicapped. That place is always all occupied. You can go there to look at that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening to the council. I'm here to talk about an issue that I have, and I'll be her translator.
當日咧，當日係9月2號星期六，係郭生帶我去上流食府嗰度聚餐。因為我本身咧就喺2020年嗰陣時做手術做失敗咗，變成咗殘障。大家而家睇到我都應該係殘障，唔會係正常人啦。但係我啲朋友咧就冇冷落我，就
As everyone can see, I am physically disabled from a 2000 surgery that I underwent in 2000 that failed. And on September 2nd, I went to a restaurant in St. Gabriel.
我啲朋友冇冷落我，就經常帶我出嚟聚餐啊，同埋食 lunch 啊，飲茶啊咁樣。咁我即係驚住我心情唔好啊，咁樣佢哋都照顧到我呢樣嘢。
My friends are all very good with me, and so they always invite me out to lunch and dinners and go out to different restaurants so that I can be mentally healthy and be happy.
9月2號星期六嗰日咧，我哋就去上樓食府，啲朋友帶我去上樓食府。
On Saturday, September 2nd, I went out to the restaurant with my friends.
嗰日咧，因為我要急於要去廁所，係啊，郭生咧就車我去到咧，我又冇因為嗰個殘障位咧又冇位。我又急住要去廁所，又驚住賴，所以郭生咧就停咗喺嗰條路嗰度。
So on the way to a restaurant, I had to use the ladies' room, and I was sitting in Mr. Guok's car, and so in a hurry to unload me so that I can use the ladies' room sooner, he stopped by the road.
當時咧就有個管理人員咧就佢又唔我哋停咗都。即刻停，佢即刻就拍攝同埋拍攝咗照片，同埋寫咗張罰單，300幾蚊嘅罰單。
As soon as we stopped, there was a parking enforcement officer who immediately snapped photos of the license plate and wrote us a ticket.
我認為咧嗰張罰單咧，如果要我俾嘅話咧，事實我俾唔起。
If I have to pay for the ticket, to be honest, that's not something I can afford.
因為我低收入，只有1000蚊嘅收入。
Because I'm low income and I only get $1,000 per month as income.
如果要我朋友俾呢300幾蚊咧，我講唔過去，我心裏邊講唔過去咯。
The ticket's about $300, and so if I have to ask my friends to pay for it, that's also something that I don't feel that I can ethically ask them to do.
所以希望即係有關聽證會嘅按照實際情況免除我哋呢張罰單。
So I hope City Council and relevant officials can look at this incident and base it upon my circumstances and hope that you can waive the parking ticket for us.
多謝。
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have one more sentence. The city council didn't arrange enough handicapped parking space is the root cause of this ticket.
I just want to mention to council and the public that we have spoken with Mr. Guo yesterday and gave him all of the process that he should follow for appealing that ticket. We do have a process for that. And then the handicap parking is set by the State of California Building Code, and we follow those minimum standards. We certainly could work with future developers to add handicap spaces to new centers if that was something that was a necessity for future centers, but the current centers have the parking that was required at the time that they were developed.
Mr. Mayor, I have no more cards.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to address council? Seeing nobody, I will close public comment. Next item, please.
Consent calendar. All items listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, and recommendations will be approved in one motion unless a member of the City Council or public requests separate discussion. We have not received a request from the public to pull an item. Please note that on item 4A, approval of minutes, meeting dates have already been corrected in the footers of the final documents.
Thank you. Is there any member of council that'd like to pull any item? Seeing none.
I'll move to approve, Mayor.
All right, motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, motion by Councilmember Menchaca, second by Vice Mayor Wu. Let's please vote.
Motion passes by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you. Next item, please.
We have no public hearing or continued business this evening. Our next item is new business item A, authorization to execute professional services agreement with Fairbank, Maslin, Maullin, Metz, and Associates in the amount of up to $37,000 for a public opinion polling service regarding a public safety headquarters potential property tax initiative. Public Information Officer Clara Tsang will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, and members of the public. Today, I'm bringing forward for discussion the city's public safety facilities and the possibility of engaging with a survey company to assess the community's thoughts on this matter. Our current police headquarters was built in the 1960s and has served us well for many years. However, because it was built so long ago, it was built before code, it's getting old, and needs many repairs to keep it fully functional to be used 24/7. Back in 1960, St. Gabriel had 47 police officers. And as the community has evolved throughout the years, its needs have grown significantly. Now we have more than 71 employees in the police department, leading to an overcrowded police facility. To make space to fit all these officers, we've had to put some of our staff in trailer offices, as well as have a satellite station in Marshall Park. And as you can see, some of our offices that are meant for 1 or 2 people are now fitting 4 officers. And when you have your work vest on, it's pretty impossible to walk past these desks. And so yes, although we have these short-term solutions that will work in the short term, our community is likely to continue to grow and evolve, and the existing facility is no longer sufficient to meet our police department's current and future needs. In addition to the conditions at the police department, our fire department is also at maximum capacity. Like PD, the demand for fire and emergency response has increased throughout the years. While the fire department is providing excellent response and service to the community, the standards of cover study done in 2018 found that our rescue ambulance is overused, and they recommended adding another rescue ambulance to our service. If council decides to expand fire services further to include a ladder truck or to have additional fire personnel to provide these additional services, our current fire facilities would not be able to accommodate any of it. So to enhance public safety services and to provide a modern facility that can be home for our growing police and fire departments in the long run, instead of putting short-term bandages on current facilities, which can become quite costly and it wouldn't be very efficient in the long run, one of the solutions that we can look at is new joint public safety headquarters. The new headquarters can be home for both PD and part of fire personnel, where they can work together in a unified command center, which will improve response times and efficiency, similar to what we do in large events in the city. Sharing a space also means that there will be staff efficiencies that we can maximize and look at some cost-sharing opportunities that currently aren't possible. Part of the HQ facility can also be home to the city's Emergency Operations Center, which is currently in a double trailer at Fire Station 51, and it needs upgrades to become state-of-the-art. It would be beneficial if police and fire both have immediate access to the EOC in a crisis. And pending the design process, the building can also serve as dedicated space for the community to report crime in private rooms, to gather for 411 with the chief, have community events, plus we can have space for a ladder truck if council wishes to go forth with it. So for something like this, we did some rough calculations and came up with numbers. Based on previous design of a police facility that was done back in 2010 during a needs assessment, the consultants predicted roughly 50,000 square feet of space will be needed to support all the police personnel in current day. Usually, public safety facilities cost about $1,000 per square feet. So for a 50,000 square foot facility, we'd be looking at something around $50 to $60 million for a new building. And while the city is in good financial situation and we are putting money aside for capital improvement projects like paving our streets, it's going to be difficult to come up with $3 to $4 million per year for a new building. So we need to look at raising additional revenue. A possible alternative funding source is a property tax that will fund a $60 million bond. Early estimates show that it can be funded at $300 per $1 million of assessed property value for the course of 30 years. Something like this would need to be voted upon, and it would require 2/3 of voters for approval. This would be a significant project and has financial implications for the community. So to that end, to ensure we're making informed decisions, we propose engaging with a reputable survey company. A professional survey company will help us gather data and insights regarding our community's specific needs and priorities. Unlike a citywide survey that's usually conducted by staff, a professional survey uses proper professional sampling methods, adequate sample sizes, and also unbiased data collection. A combination of all of that will give us survey results that are statistically relevant and give us a margin of error that can help forecast and see whether the measure will get 2/3 of voters' approval. We'll be able to evaluate if the community has an appetite for a new public safety headquarters building, if they would be willing to support the project financially with a new property tax, and if the November 2024 election will be the right time for a measure like this. We would also use this opportunity to see if the business license tax ordinance study is feasible, which was approved at the last council meeting. Should council decide to move forward on this initiative and begin the survey stage, we will be looking at the following timeline, where staff would work with a survey company on preparing the survey immediately, conducting it this fall and winter, and have the results analyzed and share them with City Council at the beginning of 2024. And to get this process started, we've reached out to 5 firms and received 4 proposals. After careful consideration of the methods, the past experience with the St. Gabriel community, their successes, as well as recommendations from strategy consultants, we'd like to put forth a survey company called FM3 Research for consideration for this portion. For this project, FM3 will look to survey 300 to 350 likely voters in the city who would be randomly sampled and represent our voter demographic in the November 2024 election. The survey will be about 15 to 20 minutes long with 45 to 70 questions, and it will be conducted in English, Spanish, and Chinese through phone, text, and email. The city worked closely with FM3 Research back in 2019 on Measure SG, which was passed successfully, and the reduction results were within the statistical margin of error. They also come very highly recommended by several other strategy consultants that we've been speaking to. Once completed, the survey firm will analyze the data and present it to City Council in January, February. By then, we'll have an idea of whether this is something the community has an appetite for, if a property tax measure is appropriate, and if we should consider this for the November 2024 election. If council decides that this is something they'd like to move forward with, we'd be looking at the following timeline, where we would begin a public information program to reach out to the community from March through June. And by June 2024, based on our research, we'd be able to make informed decisions about funding options, as well as design elements for the new building. At that point, we would also adopt and submit a resolution calling election to get the tax measure on the November 2024 ballot. And once it's on the ballot, we'll continue communication on education and outreach in the community all the way through November. Now, if council decides not to move forward with a new joint public safety facility, we can look at other options, such as remodeling our current facilities, which would be expensive, as well as building more satellite stations and additions to the current facility. These are all possible options, though none of them will be as efficient and as comprehensive as having a new joint public safety facility. To conclude, we'd like to begin to explore the possibility of a joint public safety facility. And today, I'm looking for Council's permission to engage with FM3 to start this process. That will empower us to make informed decisions that align with our community's needs and priorities. Thank you. I'm now open to questions and comments on this matter. And I've also invited Richard Bernard from FM3 Research, who is joining us by phone and can answer questions in regards to survey processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. Does any council member have any factual questions regarding this? All right, Chief City Clerk, do you have any public comment?
We do, Mr. Mayor. Our first comment comes from Chastity Jennings Nunez and reads as follows. To our council members, once again, our city is preparing to utilize tens of thousands of dollars on an unnecessary expense. Why are you proposing to spend as much as $37,000 to survey maybe 300 to 350 residents out of the 39,000 in our city to answer a question that you likely already know will be yes? The polling firm FM3 was utilized to conduct a forecasting poll for the 2019 Measure SG sales tax. How many residents responded to the poll? The current question that the chosen firm is tasked with asking is whether the residents would be willing to approve a new tax on the November 2024 ballot to fund a new public safety headquarters. In the current climate, and given the strong support that the SGPD enjoys in our community, I can tell you for far less than $37,000 that the majority are in support of providing funds for a new facility. How much does it cost to just put the question on the ballot? It doesn't require a special election, and I would think would not add any significant cost to the already planned election in November 2024. The city is just introducing a brand new Discover San Gabriel magazine that is going out to every household in the city. Put a QR code in it that takes the resident to a 2 or 3 question survey, and my bet would be that you will get a better or the same return as any survey conducted by a paid firm. You have to stop believing that $30,000 or $40,000 is inconsequential. It adds up when you are talking about many projects of the same cost, and as evidenced by every council meeting, the residents of our city have many, many suggestions for the prudent use of thousands of dollars. The next comment is from Karina Rivera, resident, and reads as follows. As a concerned citizen and a loyal supporter of the city of San Gabriel, I would like to express my sincere appreciation and endorsement for the decision to reopen the discussion on building a new police and fire station. I believe that this is a crucial first step toward ensuring the safety and well-being of our community, as well as improving the working conditions and morale of our brave first responders. We owe it to ourselves and to our heroes in uniform to provide them with the best facilities and equipment possible. Why is this project important? I have seen firsthand the conditions in which police and fire stations are. Not only are they outdated, but they are unsafe, uncomfortable, overcrowded, and dirty, thus creating a demoralizing work environment for our officers and firemen. I urge the council to move forward and approve this agreement, and thank you for taking a first step towards a path that will improve the efficiency and effectiveness of our police, fire, and emergency services. Please approve the funding and whatever steps necessary for this much-needed project and expedite the process as soon as possible. This is not only a matter of public interest, but also a matter of public duty. I thank you for your leadership and your commitment to this noble cause. We owe it to ourselves and to our heroes right now. They are operating in outdated and decaying facilities that limit their ability to respond to the needs of our community. By building a new modern and spacious headquarters, we will ensure that they have the best equipment, training, and resources to keep us safe. To my fellow city residents, please vote yes on the public safety headquarters measure in the upcoming election. Although an increase of taxes might seem scary in these unprecedented times of economic chaos, this is surely for a great cause. There is no excuse for not supporting our fire and police departments. We want to keep San Gabriel City safe, clean, and valuable. It's a small investment for a big benefit. Together, we can make our city a better and safer place to live and work. And we have a speaker, Andrew.
Good evening, City Council, City Manager. I do want to speak to the consultant that we're planning on contracting with. And the question I have is, it wasn't presented in the staff report, but it was on the staff report that was on the city website, is that we're picking the consultant that is going to do the least amount of survey for the most amount of money. There was other ones that were offering the same type of survey for like 400 residents for $10,000 less. So my question that you could discuss among yourself would be, why are we picking this particular consultant? And as far as we had used them in the past, if I recall, the previous time when we used them for Measure SG, we spent like $60,000. We contracted with them. It was around $60,000. And I think they came back and asked for another additional $30,000. So it cost us almost $100,000 for the previous survey. And I don't know of anyone who was questioned on this survey, because I know I wasn't. I went to the meeting that Denise Menchaca had with us, with some of the community members, when she brought in, I believe his last name was Wood. Can't think of his, yeah, he was part of the consulting firm. But my question is, why are we picking the one that's going to provide the least amount of service for the most amount of money? That's my question. And then also, as far as this bond, we had this transient occupancy tax that we voted in. I'm guessing a decade ago. That money was supposed to be used for a police station. We're bringing in over $3 million a year, $3.3 million last year, or fiscal year last year on that. Where's that money? The Measure SG that when they were proposing Measure SG, it was public safety, the fire department, the police department, all this stuff. That's bringing in over $3 million. Where is that money? So we got $6 million a year coming in that was earmarked for stuff like the fire and police stations, and it's not being used. So my question is, why are we going to tax people now in the city again for the same thing we've been taxing them over and over again? If you look at the material demands for the last 2 weeks, the payroll in this city, $1,090,000 for the 2-week period. You times that by 26 and divided by the 200 employees, the average wages is $140,000 a year for the employees of this city. The average household income in this city is $70,000, the whole household. So just think about where our money is going, because it's really important that we stop this, because it's been going on for decades. And you, John, you know what I'm talking about.
Any other public comment? Thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to address council? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Now it's time for council discussion. We have discussion items.
Okay, I guess I'll go first. I'll start with some of the questions that were raised. First of all, out of the four consultants, we are picking it's referred to as FM3 out of the four. I think it was explained, but Mark, can you give a little more background about this?
I would be happy to, Mayor and Council. Andrew is absolutely right. There are 4 firms that we chose. They're all within a margin of error, meaning they're not twice as much as any of the other firms. We are allowed by our purchasing code to use for professional services, to use not the lowest bidder. We are not bound at all by price. We just have to make sure we get bids. We do use price as one of the factors, but that is not the defining factor when we are doing a professional service. The other thing I would point out is it's not an apples-to-apples comparison of the number of surveys versus the amount of time that they spend on those surveys. And then finally, as Clara mentioned in her presentation, we have used that firm in the past, and they were very, very successful. I think within 2 points of what their predictions were is what our voters ended up voting for Measure SG. And so when we're talking about, I mean, all of our money is precious, but when we're talking about a few $1,000s difference between the highest and the lowest, I feel like going with the firm that's already familiar with the city and has done that in the past is the one we were choosing. And one other question that our last speaker asked was about, or a comment was about the $60,000 in additional money. If you don't mind, I'll speak to that. I think we're conflating two different consultants. The FM3 contract was, I think, even less than what they're proposing this time 4 years ago, and they did not come back for additional money. They did the survey at the price that they agreed to. It was done successfully and quickly and efficiently, and they walked away and were done with their part of the project. The other half of that approval at that time was for the outreach consultant, and we had a contract that ran for a few months with that firm, and then the speaker's right, we did have to come back for extra funds for that firm. But that's a totally separate part of the project and one that we've already contracted for a month with this time, and then if the council approves the polling, we would come back for a new contract for another firm to do that part of it. So just to summarize, FM3 came in with a price and met that price last time.
Thank you, Mark. And then the second question with regards to Measure SG. Those monies are being used for salary specifically. I don't remember in the ballot initiative anything about infrastructure. It was supposed to be for salaries. Is that correct?
We gave a whole host of things it could be used for. We didn't limit ourselves purposely because we wanted to make sure that that could be general fund money and it wasn't a special tax. It goes into our general fund, much like the TOT that the speaker mentioned. You can look at our budget documents. I think they're very readable and approachable, and you can see where that money goes. But as a public service entity, we provide services to the public, and that is provided by employees. And so the vast majority of our costs go to salaries. We all, I think, are aware of the fact that we were outspending our revenues in the past, and if it weren't for Measure SG, we would be in a whole world of hurt right now, and we would have had to lay off PD and fire and personnel throughout the organization. And Measure SG and the TOT have allowed us to continue to operate a premier city. Certainly, if the council didn't want to do a tax measure or the community, we would have to decide on what our priorities are, and we would have to cut out of our budget if we wanted to build a police facility within our current means.
Thank you, Mark. I also wanted to mention, well, it actually says here that we started in July of 2000, so it's been 23 years, and I know for myself it's been very frustrating because it started in 2000, and then I remember right before I got on council, there was even plans, and then that got put on hold. And, you know, we are now at a place where if we want to make progress with public safety, we're going to have to make an investment. And we're now at the point where it's $60 million. Our general fund budget is 50 million. So it has surpassed our general fund. So we do need some kind of influx of money. We can't just really can't just cut money because it's not enough. We do need to have a dedicated resource and understand more about what the community wants. We've done surveys in the past, but this is a different type of survey. It's not just passing it out at a park, and you know, we've had one done not too long ago. It was 3, but the top 3 was public safety. I think back in 2019, it was for Measure G, when we did the survey with a professional organization. You know, public safety was the highest priority at that time, and I would venture to say it's now, especially with our current DA and all these other crimes that are taking place, it's going to be #1. But I think, Mark, maybe you can help me with this. this survey is much more than one question. I mean, this could be a tool for us as council also. It's a 15 to 20-minute survey, so clearly it's not just, you know, would you like to pass the bond? Can you share a little bit more about that?
And I think I can answer the question that you asked, as well as a question that one of the commenters, Dr. Jennings Nunez, as well as Andrew, brought up. There are many members of the community that are very much part of what we do, and they're activated and engaged. And when we did our survey last time, the comment came up from people. I was never surveyed. I would say no if I were called, or I would say yes if I were called, and why wasn't I given my chance to opine? And the difference here is that we're not looking for a community-wide survey, because this is trying to tell us whether we should put something on a ballot or not. And in order to do that, we want to find out a random survey of the voters who are likely to come out for that election. So it's more of a statistical analysis and less of asking the community whether they want this or not. The community will obviously have that input. If we do put it on a ballot, they will have every opportunity to go and to vote at the ballot box and provide that comment, whether they were approached or not during the survey. To answer your question, it's about 75 questions, up to 75 questions. They changed their number of questions based on how some of those questions go. They also base those questions on how some of the answers come in, and based on income levels for people. And again, it's highly specialized based on what we're trying to achieve. But as you said, it could be a tool as well, because we added questions last time that talked about people's spending priorities. So even if we didn't want to put something on the ballot, we could still use those as information. One of the questions was how people receive their information, and I think that's how we all came to the conclusion that the Grapevine was still a very active and important part of our community's outreach program. And then finally, we've had them put questions in of what the general thought is about the city, things like the parks, the safety, the infrastructure. And if nothing else, it'll be interesting and informative to find out how those opinions have changed in the last 4 years. We will not be asking the same questions. It'll be tailored to this specific bond measure, but we will have room to put other questions on the ballot, and we will be able to use that information, and that will get presented in public, so everybody will have a chance to see what that produces.
Thank you, Mark. And I see both the battalion chief, Brad Davis, here, and our current chief, Elizalde, and Captain Nakamura. I'm going to start with you, battalion chief Brad. Can you please come up?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. How can I serve you?
Good evening. You've been with us how long? I forget, Brad.
I have been here just coming up on 16 years.
16 years, okay. So you've seen it all. You've seen the progress, the pitfalls, on. And I'm assuming you've read the staff report, too.
Yes, ma'am.
Was there anything you would like to add or disagree with? Can you give us some feedback as council? Is this something that you believe is needed? I'm assuming it's yes, but I'd love to hear. You're much more eloquent than I am with regards to the fire station. Can you give us some feedback about how difficult it is right now, because we continue to grow?
Yeah, absolutely. Having read the staff report that was prepared, everything that's in there is accurate. We do have 1960s buildings that we have maintained. It's the diligence of our Public Works Department and our personnel in our department that much of that is in the condition that it is. But we can't escape the fact that the age has started to show, and there's things that we don't see. I would bring up items like our remodel in the bathroom. We're trying to do that, and we get under there and find out that we have a multi-foot hole that's developing. And it's those cavities and the things that you can't see on the surface that we try to maintain that are going to catch up. The opportunity to look at something like this, especially as I've had discussions with many of you about, and there's been concerns about how are we going to provide services to the infrastructure that we're getting down on Valley. And we do have to look to the future and how are we going to do that? And we don't have the ability with our current buildings. We have added on and we have met the needs of today, but we're certainly in danger of falling behind. And a project like this would give us the opportunity at least to jump ahead in one area. We could not fit, we would struggle to find a truck that met our needs if that was something the council wanted to go with, that would fit in any of our facilities, even with retrofitting based on turn radius and everything else. That doesn't even touch the issue of housing the personnel at either of those facilities to staff that. The 2018 Standards of Coverage Survey that identified that we needed another RA quite badly to 90th percentile. We don't have a means right now without putting up a trailer to increase our staffing in order to put people on that. So everything in there is what it is, and we have the opportunity to do a joint public safety building and put our administration together. It mentions the EOC. I happen to also wear the hat of emergency manager for the city of San Gabriel, so from that perspective, I can also offer the insight that our present EOC, though we did some upgrading and retrofitting on it approximately in 2009, 2010, much of the technology that we did install in that EOC is well beyond its capabilities and does not meet the needs of today. So I know that's identified as a potential part of this project and something that is sorely needed and would carry us into the future.
I was going to ask you about the EOC, so you read my mind. Okay. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for that. And then I was going to ask Captain and Chief. I'll start with the Captain. Similar question. I mean, those of us who visited both facilities, we know the realities, but it's a little different from your perspective because you're in the trenches, literally dealing with whether it's electrical or just staffing. Like that example in the picture. But could you share a little bit more about some of the challenges and why this is important, why we should stop kicking that can down the road as we have?
Yeah, that is a great question, Councilwoman Menchaca. Good evening, Mayor and Vice Mayor, members of the City Council. Everything that has been told by our PIO, Clara Sang, and our Division Chief, Brad Davis, has been true. The building is actually 61 years old, and a lot of people do not realize that we are 365, 24 hours, 7 days of operation. So technically, that building, under engineering standards, it almost goes into a 120-year-old building at that point. And everything is just failing, and we're just basically putting patches and Band-Aids as we go. We're very fortunate to have a great public works staff that does keep this building moving and living. But that patchwork is going to come to an expiration date eventually. Every year we have leaks during rainstorms. We have sewage backups constantly that they have to work on. We constantly have different types of smells in a building. Like a couple years ago, we had some kind of electrical outbreak that we had to deal with. It's just an ongoing myriad of issues that we constantly have to work on. And thankfully, again, we have Public Works to help us, but there's going to be a time and point where we're just not going to be able to repair anything, and decisions are going to have to be made.
Thank you, Captain. And Chief, sorry I put you in this situation. You've only been here a week or 2 weeks. but what I like about your perspective is that you're coming from a city, Alhambra, who really have relatively new facilities. And so you can really, within these 2 weeks, I'm sure you've already made some comparisons and you've seen that we need to make some improvements if we are serious about carrying this department or public safety in general, making it a priority. Do you have any comments, suggestions, things that we should consider that you've seen within these last 2 weeks?
I do. First of all, good evening and thank you for the invitation to speak. During my first week, I took an in-depth tour of the entire property and was very concerned, to say the least, and that's being very conservative in my terms, very concerned at the state of the building, especially knowing what technology is needed to operate a premier law enforcement agency that San Gabriel is wanting and that we can deliver. In short, we can't deliver it in that building. even if we continue to add on. And like it was said with our public works partners, they are great. They have been there every single day working on different projects. However, like the captain said, that can only do so much. My concern is making sure that we have a police department and ultimately a public service facility, a joint public service facility with fire that can meet not only the needs that are challenging us today, but 10 and 20 years from now. Right now, the building is dated as stated. If we were to suffer a natural disaster of any type of magnitude, I could not use that police facility to run a joint operation unified command out of. I had the opportunity to go over to Station 71 during the 9/11 memorial, but also for a meeting to the EOC. As stated by the fire department, the EOC is also outdated. So that's my concern in trying to advocate for a new facility for police and fire so that we can bring the services that the residents are expecting and wanting. More so also with the employees within the police department, I need to make sure that I'm doing everything that I can as the police chief that creates an atmosphere that is safe for them and to work in and want to come to work and not have to worry about the overcrowding. There's overcrowding, which is a concern to me. With our great partners from the school district, I have our Community Engagement Bureau working out of the school district. I have our traffic division working out of a building at Marshall Park. Ideally, it is not ideal. I need everybody in one building for a unified command so we can provide the services that, again, the residents want and that I'm looking to bring. The men and women are hardworking. They've been there much longer than I have, and they've been working through this. But again, it's something that is in need, and I will continue to advocate for that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
So I know for me, public safety is a prime, it's really right now the top priority. And I think this is so important for us to come together and finally take that step for a tax initiative, but to do it in a meaningful way, not just do it, but let's understand maybe there's some other needs we have. I know with Alhambra, you know, they expanded their capabilities, and then they found that perhaps maybe they need to even expand more. But hopefully through this polling, especially if we're going to have an opportunity to look at the questions, you know, there might be other needs we have there too, not just for the headquarters. But I'm in favor of moving forward with this item, and let's start. You know, let's take that step now instead of waiting another 24 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Vice Mayor Wu?
Thank you, Mayor. Well, thank you very much, Clara, that the RPIO has done a great job on her presentation. I do have a couple questions because, well, as our populations in our city is growing, we have projects is approaching completion. I believe public safety building is something that we need eagerly. You know, we need badly. But according to the proposal from the FM3, that they will be targeting the multi-language approach for our resident in English, Spanish, and Chinese. We have a plenty number of people who speak Cantonese and Vietnamese. Exactly how many languages that FM3 is able to support with such a sample size of 300 to 350 residents and with a 20-minute survey?
Sure, that's a good question. So in the past, this proposal came from FM3 based on their past experience, and they tailored it based on that experience to say these are the things that worked really well last time when they did the 2019 Community Priority Survey. And so in this one, they identified Spanish, English, as well as Mandarin and Cantonese to be the languages of choice that they think would represent the voter demographics that would turn out for the November 2024 election. And I also have Richard on the phone. So Richard, if you're here, if you want to chime in and talk a little bit about your process, that'll be great.
Yes. Yes, we can.
So, so about, so about, thank you so much, Richard, for that, clarifying that the Vietnamese is not real in the language that's supported to your survey. But also, regarding another question is that we are a diverse community. So we have we have more tenants than landlord, more tenants than homeowner occupies residents in our city. So we are getting a survey from the voters' information based on the voters' registration, but not the county assessor's office. Is that correct? Because I'm. Mhm. Oh, okay. And since these days most of the people getting spam calls all the time, what numbers will be reflecting on the caller's ID when you're reaching out the residents? Or because people will see FM3, this is a call from radio station. Thank you very much. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Chen.
Thank you. And my question may be, I'm not sure who it should go to, maybe the Finance Department or some of my colleagues who have a little more experience than I do in this area. But it seems to me what we're discussing is having a polling company figure out if a property tax measure would be viable for our city. Now, is that the only or the best way of financing this kind of project? I don't know if, Will, maybe that's for you or maybe some of my colleagues who are a little more experienced in, for example, this being a property tax or some other kind of tax that our city could do. So just kind of to walk me through that.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So what we're looking at is, we call it a general obligation bond. So there would be a property tax, if the voters would approve it, that would secure this bond. And so there would be a dedicated revenue source for this bond that would be specifically for this bond, restricted, that could only pay for this bond. If we, for example, we're looking at possibly increasing our business license taxes. So we could say, well, that may increase our revenue by like $2 million a year, but there's no guarantee that that revenue will be there. So if the economy takes a hit, it would be entirely supportive of the general fund operating revenues, versus this type of measure would be specifically restricted to pay for this bond.
And I'll just add why that's important. What everything Will
Please
said
do.
is correct. Why that's important is when ultimately we're selling bonds, they come at an interest rate. And if we have a city property tax dedicated to that, that interest rate's going to be low because that's a very secure investment for bondholders. If, as Will said, we're relying on a business license tax or just the ability of the city to absorb that into the general fund, that is going to be a much higher risk for bondholders, so we're going to pay more for that. As you pointed out, we're looking at a polling firm. Approving this contract does not lock us into a ballot initiative. We'll come back and decide that at a future night. It doesn't lock us into putting something on the ballot. And we have a firm that we have on staff or on contract, excuse me, our financial consultant that will take this information and come back with the various ways that we could finance that. And if our voters won't support a bond, then we'll look at other ways. But we wanted to try this avenue first, obviously with the council's backing, in order to have all of those options before all of you in the winter or the early spring, so you can decide what the best way to move forward is.
Thank you. Thank you all. That's all I have, sir. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I had a couple questions as well. Mark, you might be able to answer. So I was interested in one of the comments regarding, can you explain the difference between like an online, I'll call it a poll versus an in-depth survey like this? Because I think oftentimes people confuse a poll and a survey, or maybe even the consultant could explain the difference between like when you click on a QR code and there's an online poll, or poll versus this is a survey. There is a material difference.
That's a great question, and Richard, feel free to jump in at the end if I have misspoken or you want to add anything. We try our darndest to get information from our community, and I'm very proud to say that when we did our latest poll on how people get their information and what they want to hear about, we had over 800 responses, which for us is astronomical. When we did our budget input, we ended up with around 300, I believe, which is pretty good for us, but we ended up with 800 at that time. When you do a QR code, and the commenter was exactly right, we could put a QR code in our new Grapevine, we could put social media out, and we could get hundreds of these responses. But there's no correlation, or it would be hard to correlate between what those responses are and whether those folks are likely to come out into an election and vote. As I mentioned in the beginning of the comment, we are very diligent in trying to get information from the public, but in this case, that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for information from Joe the plumber about whether he or she is going to vote for this. We're looking for information on what a statistical representation, as best as we can with the responses, can project. It's really a projection for what the public will come out in November of 2024 and vote. And then you get that back as a recommendation or as a statistic. And the other thing I will say is, and Clara mentioned this in her presentation, we're not looking for a majority. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, when you do a special tax, which is what this would be, it's dedicated to a single project. It has to be a property tax. Measure SG, for example, was a general tax, meaning that it could go to any general fund or any city use. This is a special tax that will be dedicated to paying a bond. And so as the law stands right now, we need 66 2/3 of the voters to come and vote yes. So I think the commenter said we would have more than 50%, or the majority would, and I think that's probably true. The question is, if it's 64% and we have a plus or minus of 4%, that's either 68% or 60%, and that's the information we'll get back and have to decide as a council what you all want to do moving forward. So I think I hopefully roundabout answered the difference between a survey where we're trying to get information from everybody who responds versus targeting a statistical representation of likely voters to answer a question.
So, and it's actually several questions, several in-depth questions. And we're targeting people based on demographics that cover the whole city, not random people that are self-selecting to go scan a QR code.
And you're right. And not only that, it gives us in-depth information about the income and race and other categories. And why that's important is because it gives you the information you need to make a decision. For example, when we had the Measure SG polling, it showed that across all income levels in the city, they supported Measure SG. And so our concern with putting that question on, or what we were trying to learn, is whether we're going to be taxing the rich, for example, to pay, or the poor. That's the downside of it. If it's a regressive tax and folks who are in the lower income levels have to pay for those things, but if it's supported broadly, that's information that you can use then to make that kind of a judgment.
So what I'm hearing is that this kind of poll or survey, this is not random. It's much more data-driven.
If I may, I would actually say it's random, but in a different way. It's statistically random. In other words, we have the entire population of likely November 2024 voters, and we will randomly contact folks to be able to respond. The demographics of the respondents we will make sure mirror the demographics of the likely November 2024 electorate. So it won't only be folks who are from Group A. It will be the appropriate percentage of folks from Group A, appropriate percentage of folks from Group B, and the like. And just that, Mark, you did a great job. I just want to emphasize that I don't know exactly how you did your surveys, but in some cities, they have sort of an open portal for folks to respond, but they don't distinguish from people who have responded more than once. And also that, people will share sometimes the link to other folks so that they say, oh, my friends who may not even live in the city of San Gabriel can respond as well. We know who's registered to vote, who's likely to vote, and they got one shot at it. And they can't sort of pass it around once they've answered the survey because it won't work anymore. And so it really reflects a random sample of likely November 2024 voters. And that's really important because then we can generalize the results to the entire likely population of voters.
Okay, thank you. So yes, I guess that's what I was meaning, that you controlled the data of the respondents.
Yes.
They know the data.
They know the data, right. Okay, got it. Thank you.
So I think another concept was that, why don't we just put it on the ballot and find it out and not spend all this money? I would like a further explanation of the cost of putting something on the ballot. It's not free. Also, the city would engage in a education campaign. So if we don't think this is something that's like, an education campaign costs significantly more than this consultant. So this is kind of like the initial investment to see if we should do that education campaign and put it on the ballot. So if you could discuss that a little more detail.
I think you just did. I think you did it better than I can. Our city clerk can talk about the cost of that. It is probably the cost of putting it on the ballot is less than the outreach and education campaign we do. And before she responds, I'll add to your reasons why we don't want to just throw it on there. And that is, if we can find out in the next 2 months or so that this is a no-go, why would we wait another year and a half to figure out what our other financing options are? On the converse, if we think it could be successful, then we might have the best opportunity in any of our lifetimes to put this together and make this a reality.
Thank you, because
I was just going to say, so Sharon, do you know the cost of, or approximately? I know it's hard to predict.
well, let me ask this, actually, more accurate question. Is there additional cost? Because we're already having an election. Would there be more cost?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what we want to know.
Yes, it's also, there's a lot of variables to this. Election costs are shared by how many cities or agencies are taking part in the election. The costs for ballot measures also depend on how many pages it takes in the voter guide. So given that, I guess in today's dollars, which may not be the same next year, I would say probably in the neighborhood of $6,000 to $7,000 extra.
Thank you. 6,000 to 7,000 extra for this item. So along those lines, I mean, I want to stay on the same line of questioning because there is a reason that cities and councils go through these processes, because what we're also not saying in the report, which I think I wouldn't expect it in the report, but there's the opportunity cost. If we go to just randomly throw it on the ballot and it gets voted down, the likelihood of it getting voted down again vastly increases, rather than never putting it on the ballot and waiting till we have the time where people would approve it. So the timing also makes a huge impact on future ability. The fact that we were able to know that Measure SG was going to pass, let the staff and let the city council make that decision, and an informed decision that turned out to be true, that really, we had one shot at it, really, and if we didn't do it then, we probably were never going to get it done, because the county would have swooped in and done it.
If you don't mind me adding one thing to that, one of the, I think the best counsels that Richard Bernard from FM3 gave in the last one, you'll all recall that we were just at the beginning of our financial crisis. We could have gone in November of 2019 and had the measure go at that time, or the other time would have been March of 2020, and we were pretty desperate and wanted to get the funding going as soon as possible, and also to get in front of any other measures. But one of the things that our poll found out was that our community was fairly supportive, but not without more information of why we needed this. The information in the community is we were doing fine, things were okay, and there wasn't a need for more money. And if the community doesn't think we're doing a good job and they don't think we need money, then it won't be successful. So all of that to say, Richard at that point said, I know you're needing to go now, but here we can't give you the same level of confidence for November of 2019 as we can in March of 2020, because you'll have had 4 months more of giving the community information about why this is necessary. And he was exactly right in the end. So to your point, Mayor Harrington, it might be that we find out we need to wait an election cycle because we need to do something different, or it's a different voter cycle at that time. So it is more than just a simple survey to tell us whether it will be efficient or not.
Thank you. And then next to the underlying issue, which is the police and fire facilities themselves, I will just say, when I've been on council since 2011, I was immediately put on the police station, I don't know what to call it, but we had a weekly meeting for the construction of that police station, because that's my background. I've actually been a project manager for a police station in the past, so I know what it takes to build one. At that time, our budget was $24 million. It's now 50. So if we wait another 10 years, what are we looking at? 100 probably. Construction costs, they just go up. They never go down. And had we done it 10 years ago, we'd have an 8-year-old facility right now that we would probably almost be paid off had we been able to somehow accomplish that. So whenever I think of construction or development, I always think of what's the life cycle cost. If I had built this like they did in the 60s, they probably built this thing for around $1 million, maybe less than $1 million. So you think about that, we spend more than that monthly on our payroll than they built the whole facility for. So the earlier you can build something, the less it's going to cost you, even in future dollars. You know, if you're using the dollars from the day, it was cheaper to build back then relative to today's dollar. Lots of things go up in cost in many ways. So the sooner we can get this going, the better we can, first of all, accommodate the technology that we don't have. Well, we cannot equip this facility with the proper technology. Not possible. Either facility, the fire stations or the police station. So this is something that's of dire need. It's not something we can, I would say, we tried in the past to save up for and not finance, but it's just not possible. We have so many ongoing costs, and it is a desperate need. Anybody that's been in the facility knows that. And so this is, I think, the best way to approach constructing a new facility. This is just going to be information, and you know, information is valuable. And paying for it, you know, we get the city council says, "Why do you always hire these consultants? Why do you always hire these consultants?" We don't have staff members. This is their expertise. We have staff members that can analyze what information is given by a consultant. We have staff members that will totally understand it and be able to use it, but it is not their expertise to develop this information. That's what the consultants do. So to me, it's an investment, and it's an investment that can save us in two ways. Number one, it can save us by not doing it. That's valuable information that saves us. And then the second thing is, if we do it, what is the most likely way to make sure it's successful? That's another value that this adds. And that's something that I think often gets, I'd say, lost in the wash, that this isn't money that we're just throwing away. It's not something where, oh, we just decided to pay this consultant because we don't want to do that work. That's not the case here. They are experts in what they do, and experts come at a cost, but then we have to decide as a council, is there value to that cost? And that's what our decision is about tonight. Are these costs of value to the community, of value to the city? So me personally, I can support that. And given the fact that we have different costs, higher, lower, those are all qualitative, not necessarily always quantitative. It's a qualitative analysis. I'll give you an example. One of the very low-cost ones is only in English and Spanish. There's no Chinese at all. I don't know that makes a difference to some people, but I think it makes a big difference to our community. And I think if our pollster comes back and says, you know, we really should have Vietnamese, that's something that we would be open to as a council of entertaining. But they would say why. I think right now they've selected no, but maybe we ask the question as to why, and are we willing, what would be the delta? How much more would it cost? It might be valuable information as well. So really, I think from the outside, and I've done the same thing as a taxpayer, saying, why are they wasting all of this money? Once you sit down and think about it and analyze, I think a reasonable person can say, yeah, that actually does make sense to spend the money on this because there's the value. Like, why would you buy a car that costs more than another car? Well, there's value to it. I mean, there's huge differences. Someone can buy a $5,000 used car or a $200,000 sports car. They have different values to different people. But same thing here. We have different values to these different services. And I think I've talked to Mark. I do trust the staff in their analysis of what these different firms are bringing. So I don't think I think it's the lowest is like 24,000 and the highest is 37. But what they're giving us are not the same thing. So when we say apples to oranges, it really is apples to oranges. So I can justify that position just because I've completely, I would say, immersed myself in this and read everything And I'm confident that the staff made the best decision, so I would support that.
Well, then I'm ready to entertain the motion. I'll move on the staff recommendation. Should I read it or just? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Then, okay.
I'd like to second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilmember Menchaca, second by Councilmember Chan. Please vote.
Motion passes by a vote of 4-0.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Community Services and Mission Playhouse update. Community Services Director Rebecca Perez will make the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor Harrington and members of the City Council. Tonight I'm going to present an update on the Community Services and Mission Playhouse Department. Tonight's presentation will include the following sections: about our department, what we do, programs and services we offer, and what's new and coming. Prior to 2014, the department was Parks and Recreation. As part of a citywide strategic plan in 2014, the change was made to Community Services with the goal to focus on the recreation and human service needs of our residents and park planning and open space needs for our community. In 2019, Community Services joined with Mission Playhouse to become the department it is today. Among other things, the Community Services Division manages facilities including the Community Recreation Center, Adult Center, and Grapevine Park, and Smith Park Pool, provides recreation opportunities for youth, adults, and seniors, provides park planning for the city's parks, including Smith, Vincent Lugo, Marshall, Roosevelt, and Plaza, and joint use parks at Coolidge and Washington schools, manages Community Services Commission and Human Equity Access and Relations, or HERE Commission, provides community special events, and publishes the quarterly recreation publication, which, as we've just learned, is Discover SG, is our new publication. Mission Playhouse Division manages the Center for Arts and Culture in the community, operates and maintains the Playhouse that was built in 1927 to house the Mission Play, offers one of the largest stages in Southern California, a movie screen and digital projection, and a theater that seats over 1,300 guests, maintains a Wurlitzer pipe organ, the star of our Silent Sundays series, provides community special events, and maintains this landmark, which was listed in the National Register for Historic Places in 2017. Now I'd like to provide an overview of the programs and services we've offered. Since we have just recently entered a new fiscal year, I have the numbers I'm including tonight are from our last fiscal year, 22-23. The Community Services Division offers recreation classes, and in 22-23 we offered 345 classes. Aquatics classes at Smith Park Pool, which was over 160 classes last year. Transit services, including over 300 MTA bus passes that are filled at our facility, and over 240 Ride SG Plus passengers, which is for our senior and disabled population. We also are now doing Ride SG, which is for the public, general public, and parks and facility rentals, including over 375 rentals of park areas and over 140 facility rentals of our adult recreation center in Grapevine Park. Additionally, Community Services offers older adult programs, including our lunch program, where we serve over 50 seniors on a regular basis. Social programs such as art workshop, bingo, movie days, table tennis, and pickleball. Tech tutoring, where seniors can ask questions about using their devices, and trips and tours. Youth programs serving over 180 students during the school year and close to 300 youth during our day camp and summer programs. passports, including over 1,000 passports processed, and special events, which include over 25 special events offered throughout the year, ranging from our weekly Art in the Park during summer to our annual Dia de los Muertos, Fall Fun Festival, and holiday programs that will be here before we know it. Mission Playhouse Division offers playhouse rentals ranging from local and international performing arts groups who produce and present a range of cultural performances. In fiscal year 2022-23, there were over 50 rentals, many of which span over multiple days of rehearsals and performances. Theater maintenance, which for a historic building is a lot and is constant. We have specialized projects such as maintenance of the organ, installation of the ADA lift, which the council approved, and facade restoration. Special event programming includes 4 Silent Sundays each year, which is a silent film with live accompaniment on our Wurlitzer organ, 2 outdoor summer concerts in the plaza, and community events in the plaza or Mission District. Also ticket services, which includes collaboration with Ticketmaster to provide ticketing service. Now on to what's new and coming for the department. Right SG, as I mentioned, we are now offering this service for the general public. So in addition to our Right SG Plus, which is for seniors and disabled, this is open to the general public. Discover San Gabriel, you should have your newest edition of Discover San Gabriel within the next 2 weeks. It is available already online. So this is the publication that is combining the recreation guide and what was the grapevine. And as I mentioned, we're coming into our busy season of fall and holiday events, and we also will have at the beginning of October an upcoming discussion about special events in our community and ways that those may be enhanced. Review of nonprofit status for the Mission Playhouse by early 2024, and also preparations for the 100th birthday celebration. As I mentioned, the Mission Playhouse was established in 1927, so 2027 we'll be celebrating our 100th anniversary. And also a seating campaign at the Mission Playhouse to replace the over 1,300 seats. This concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
We actually like to see it full, not empty.
But it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty. But thank you for the presentation, Rebecca. That was excellent. I like to see a lot of the new stuff that we've done really in the past year-ish. It's been quite a bit of activity, and we do appreciate that. Any comments or questions? Oh, we can. Do we have any public comment? We have one.
And this is just a suggestion. What I've noticed in the last couple years that the community service, most of what we offer is for like elementary school children or adults and older adults, but the junior high and high school age youth in the community, there's not really, doesn't really seem to be a lot of activities that for them. And so I just wanted to bring that up, and I've spoke to Rebecca a little bit about, I'd like to advocate for some youth ambassadors with the Community Service Commission, because they might be able to bring some ideas on what might kind of bring, the junior high and the high school youth, into kind of, give them something to do other than just, study and hang out with the family, just maybe something that might keep them out of trouble. That's the only comment I want to make.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience like to address council? Seeing none, we'll move to council comment.
Rebecca, thank you for the presentation. Very nice. But just kind of something, one of the last things you mentioned about the seating campaign, how is that going to work? Do you have an idea?
We've had very initial discussions about it, but we've not had a full discussion about it. But the discussions that we've had initially is that there will be an opportunity for people to
Like sponsor a seat and
Sponsor a
have
seat and
their,
get
their
their-
name placard on there or
exactly.
etched in a seat?
exactly.
Cool, I like that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we'll put you on that campaign.
All right, oh, yeah, sure. Well,
Watch
I
what
don't
you
know, if-
ask for.
I don't know if you remember, well, of course you remember, before the Rona lockdown, my parents, well, in Focus Plaza, there used to be Sam Wu. I guess it's now VIP, Hong Kong, similar food, but a lot more hoity-toity, I guess. But I used to joke about my parents going there. My father's a creature of habit. He used to eat there every Friday, and he isn't very adventurous with his food. So my mom and I used to joke that my dad goes there every Friday and he orders the same 3 things over and over again. And I was telling my mom, you know, you guys spend so much money there, you know, you financed a lot of their furniture. They should at least have a, you know, kind of placards on some of the tables that you financed, Dr. and Mrs. Ju Chan Memorial Table or something. Thank you.
That's it? I know, I'm just kidding. Who'd like to go?
I will ask. Thank you, Rebecca. Could you talk to me a little bit more about the Community Foundation and what progress we've made? Because that's something that is really important for us. To be able to raise money, we have to have that foundation. And I know, well, when I was married during COVID, we had some real good conversations about it, but where are we, and are we trying to move forward? Do we need to hire someone to help us put it together? Kind of just a status report on the Community Foundation. Or I thought it was called Community Foundation. Maybe there's a different name to it, but I think you know what I'm talking about, the nonprofit that we're trying to set up.
Community Foundation is where we're able to, California Community Foundation is where we're able to take donations at this time. What we're trying to establish is our own 501c3, so we would actually have, for example, Friends of San Gabriel Mission Playhouse. So that's a little bit different in that it would be our own nonprofit, and we would have an advisory board alongside of that. So that is what we're working on. Right now, I'll be honest, we're short-staffed. We're short-staffed in both divisions. So we have 2 new supervisors that are starting in community services on Monday, and we are down 1 supervisor in at the Mission Playhouse. So once we have those positions filled, we will be fully staffed and have the ability to move forward with a project like that.
So that's something that we can do internally. We don't need to get outside support for that?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
I've
'Cause
never established a 501c3, to be honest with you, but we do have staff that have abilities with that, so.
Okay, yeah, because it's been, what, 2020, 2019, 2020 that we had that conversation. So
Yeah.
it's been 3 years, and it is really important because there's so much that needs to be done. I don't recall, but what is the shortfall right now for our Mission Playhouse? Because we always have to use general fund money to fund the Mission Playhouse. And the shortfall used to be $800,000, but I know every year you seem to be able to bring that closer to a break even. I know I don't have my book. My book's somewhere back there. Are we still at 300,000?
Will, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the budgeted transfer from the general fund to the Mission Playhouse is $350,000 every year.
It's the
What we
same.
don't know until the year ends is how much more that would take. We do have a slight fund balance in the Mission Playhouse Fund, and so the last couple of years, we have not had to draw more. But we will obviously let council know during our budget updates what the revenue versus expenses is for the Playhouse. But I think the number you're looking at is 350.
350. It's been pretty consistent at least the last 3 years, but it was at 800,000 at one point. So if we establish as friends of the Mission Playhouse, that could help in reducing that transfer so we can do more with that money. Is that correct?
That could. The bigger need than the ongoing day-to-day is the bigger improvement projects. For example, the seat campaign is one. We need to fully redo the bathrooms downstairs, and there are all sorts of upkeep that needs to be done. So I think those are the bigger ticket items. The part that came out during COVID was the amazing members of our community who have special skills in theater and nonprofit management and those kinds of things. And I think they could help us the ongoing way of maybe some of those soft skills more than just the money aspect.
Okay, because I look at this as an investment, just like we've done when we approved previously. I think we need to make an investment in our Mission Playhouse, because years go by and we still haven't moved forward. We've made progress, but now we're stuck at 350, which again is better than where we were before. But I would like to see our investment being made in establishing this Friends of the Mission Playhouse, using those same people that were there in 2020. We had those great conversations. I think we had 2 Zoom meetings where I think members of our community are ready to help. We are actually very, very fortunate. We have some people that have great skill sets that match the needs. And so I would like us to consider something to move us forward. I feel like we're always dealing with staff issues, but as you can tell, there's so many other activities taking place, and that number seems to keep growing. But I think we need a dedicated resource to get us to jumpstart this and start bringing in some money and making those improvements. So I would like to keep saying, I think I say that every year. We need to make that investment. So and you know that, Rebecca, we've had that conversation over and over again. And I know you've tried, but you're already at max. I mean, you're wearing a hat of 2. It used to be, we used to have a director for the Mission Playhouse, and then you were the director of Parks and, well, not Parks and Community Services, and now you are, you know, we merge those together, have some managers to help. But I just can't see this moving forward. I think you have all the greatest of intentions, but it's just too much. And so, again, I'm going to say it again, we need to make that investment so we can move forward.
One of the other things I see with that funding that comes through that is us being able to produce some of our own programs. And right now, we don't have that funding. We do our 4 Silent Sundays, but that's not really production. We're essentially a rental house, right? So all of the shows that you see coming into the Playhouse are people coming and renting our space. And until we can have a couple of productions where we can actually make some money to be able to produce some more feature programs, I think we'll be in a much better place.
Well,
to be able
hopefully,
to do that.
within the next year, you can bring a proposal to that effect. 'Cause I think there's just so many benefits, and especially when we're approaching our 100th anniversary. It would be great to have a Friends of sorts and have our own productions and you know, to help with the seats. And there's just so much untapped resources there. There's so much more we can do. We're doing great with the facility rentals, that's for sure. You know, we've raised the rates, it's constantly busy. But again, I just, to get to that next level, I just think I would like to see something brought back to the council. So, and then, let's see, you know, I don't know if I've spoken to you or Matthew, but some of our events we've had for a long time. And, you know, maybe we need to kind of change them up a little bit. I don't want to increase, like I said before, we can always tag team, but we talked about how we've had Surf's Up for a while. Maybe we need to kind of change that. So I was going to suggest, I like country, and you know, country's quite popular. But when I mentioned country, somebody right away said, well, Johnny Cash, and it's like, no, there's like Morgan Wallen, and there's, you know, Luke Bryan, even Taylor Swift, Miranda Lambert. You know, maybe that generation that one of our speakers were talking about, maybe that might bring them in. I don't know if we're a country kind of, you know, community, but I think the beach thing, the Surf's Up, I think we've kind of worn that out, and maybe just looking at something different. And so I'm just suggesting, you know, country, you know, bringing, maybe changing it up a little bit, and maybe some of the other ones changing it up, you know. Some of our programs, Dia de los Muertos, and Well, dumplings, you don't want to change anything because they keep coming, so that's perfect. But
That's not my event either, so I won't.
yeah,
take
yeah.
any credit for
That's
it.
not even your event.
That's
Okay,
not
well
a-
then you don't have to change it. But I think Cinco de Mayo, those are all new. Even the Lunar Festival, or now I guess it's going to be the Lantern Festival, those are still new. But some of these others just seem like we kind of do it over and over again. And we're going to have a conversation about our 4th of July. That's good. But maybe just changing things a bit, not adding, just the same program, but maybe a little different, just to kind of give it some new life. So anyway, that's my my plug for country music. Thank you.
We'll
Thank you.
plan a country concert. You did mention that.
Oh, so I did talk to you about it. I knew I would talk to somebody.
I support both kinds of music, country and Western.
Well, but then people start thinking Gene Autry. It's like, okay, guys, there's a lot of
Hey, don't knock Gene.
new artists, Kane Brown. I mean, there's just so many. But anyway, go on.
Earl Haggard. I can go on. Vice Mayor Wu.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Rebecca. I have a question. I think Mark just mentioned about that we will need to renovate the restroom downstairs, but since we are approaching 100th birthday for the Playhouse, do we define the Playhouse as a historical buildings that we are not able to, or we have to limit ourselves to do certain renovations? We have had those kind of issues if we pass 100 years.
We already have it on the historic preservation list with the national, and it was one of our phenomenal residents who helped us with that. And as Rebecca mentioned, that was done in 2017. So it's really 50 years or older is when buildings start to get to the point where we look at them. So this is way, way, way beyond that, and as we have that registration. Generally speaking, we're allowed to do a lot on the inside. It's a lot harder to do stuff on the outside. We're not proposing to do anything on the outside. But something like upgrading the bathrooms and bringing them as close to compliance as we can and modernizing them, that's something that we would work with the state parks and rec, which is the state operation that monitors all this, and we would do it in historically sensitive ways, but we are not prevented from doing those kinds of upgrades and improvements.
So as long as we don't really mount anything or to change the exterior area of the Nation Playhouse, we are able to do renovations inside of the building.
That's right, and that's a very general response, but you're exactly right. I've worked with another historic theater in the past, and I'm not proposing this for the Mission Playhouse, but just to give you an example, we changed some of the areas into restaurants inside of the building and added smaller meeting areas, and we worked with the state parks for that, and they were approval. They approved it because we did not do a lot to the exterior.
I see. Well, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for that clarification. Well, I'm so glad that because recently I started hearing people saying that San Gabriel is a fun city. It's not an old city anymore. So I would say I do admire Rebecca and your leadership that making the city so interesting for people to come. Do you have any updates about the Lantern Festival?
I don't. You and I have talked recently, but we are looking to work hopefully with World Journal to bring that. And the reason we're calling it a Lantern Festival this year, should it come to fruition for 2024, is that World Journal is actually working with another community already on the Lunar New Year event. And so they were not able to work with us on a Lunar New Year event. Lantern Festival, and correct me if I'm wrong or add to this, is the ending of the Lunar New Year cycle, I'll call it.
Correct.
And so we're looking to do a Lantern Festival.
So that is actually, of course, that is still a part of the Lunar New Year celebration period, but we actually call it as a Lantern Festival, so we don't really have any issues with World Journal that they are currently contracting with another city that will call the Lunar New Year.
Right.
I see. Okay. And also, I would like to get some updates about the Right SG. So far, I don't still see that the multi-language interface. Is there any progress on that?
So I apologize for not getting back to you on that. In order to do that multi-language, we would actually have to pay for that. And they estimated that it would be about $10,000 for us to be able to do that. They don't currently have that, a one-time fee, and the latest question I asked them was whether or not we would be able to recoup that if other cities requested that. So if they would be able to charge other cities possibly a lesser fee, but if we could recoup some of that. And I've actually not gotten an answer on that, so I would need to follow up on that again.
And Rebecca, correct me if I'm wrong, but the money was a part of it, but it was also timing on them in their
Correct.
App update
So it
cycle.
would
and
kind of come on an update timeframe.
10,000 is a lot, but I think to serve our community, that's not a lot. I think the bigger issue was the timing as they have their update cycle with the app.
10,000 is just for one language,
Yeah.
or actually that can be multi-languages?
That would be for one language.
Or
because
one.
It would be for them developing, yeah.
Okay.
That's what they indicated.
But so far, we have like a Spanish already. It's implemented.
I don't know the answer to that.
I actually used it. Great app. It's just like the Micro Metro in Altadena and Pasadena that I use for a family friend. But I did not see Spanish. I just saw English.
I'll look into that and get back to both of you with that, or all of the council with that information.
Okay. And how many staff we have for, I would say full-time staff for serving as a like community services team?
So we have myself, manager. We will have 2 supervisors starting on Monday. And then we have a coordinator and a specialist. And then we have 3 admin staff.
So that's about 8 people. Well, that's very few
Sorry,
of you.
I
but
wasn't
you're-
counting, I was listing, I wasn't counting.
But you also have part-time people for
And
special.
then part-time for,
Okay.
Yeah,
for,
that's a great thing that you can accomplish that many events just with just very few people. So you're still short of people.
of those 2 supervisors, that will complete our, we are still hiring part-time staff as well, but.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. That's all I need to have. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Wu. I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I like to get these updates. I think they're very helpful for council to know what's going on in each department. I agree that it's always good to look at refreshing some of our programs because it's easy to just keep putting them on, but it's a little more difficult to add a little variation, which I think is always a healthy thing and a good thing to do, and challenging. And so your job isn't routine either. You actually get to be challenged to do new things. So I'd highly encourage that as well, to just think outside the box and say, hey, what can we do? And I did like the idea of bringing some youth ambassadors in. I think that's a really good idea because that is the gap, and those are the hardest, I think, of all of our residents to reach, are between middle school and high school. They're just disengaged because of the age.
And we do, thank you for that, we do have middle school programs,
I
but we
know.
don't have high school programs.
Yeah, I know the middle school exists, but
Yeah.
it's just difficult to reach the kids at that age. And if
Yeah, and even the middle school is limited with
we
what
had like,
are serving.
who knows what we could do, but I'm sure kids
Country.
came up with some great ideas. Country would really draw them in. I was thinking more like video game tournaments, things like that would do it. Something fun that they would actually come out to do that's, safe and something that brings people together. So I'd encourage that. Thank you. Really appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Oh, and I've just got one more thing, a plug for Ride SG. I used it to get here today.
Oh,
so
good.
It works well. Thank you.
Used it as well. It's nice.
Awesome.
It's smooth. It's really smooth.
Very easy, and I did see someone, I saw Ride SG in Pasadena, and I looked, and it was somebody who was handicapped, and, I was assuming getting a ride to, a doctor's appointment, but it was nice to see that we can help people get to their doctor's appointment, even though it's outside of SG.
And Ride SG Plus for seniors and disabled, they're able to go 5 miles outside the city for anything. It doesn't just have to be a doctor's appointment. So they can do their shopping outside the city or visit a friend or.
What's great.
Thank you. All right, so next item is second public comment?
Mr. Mayor, I have no speaker cards.
No speaker cards. So this item is for anybody that hasn't addressed council yet. Is there anyone in the audience? I think I see one. We finally have a taker for second comment.
It's not really a public comment. I was hoping to get a selfie with all of you for my assignment. I am a student journalist and my professor requires us to take a selfie with the council that we are meeting with. And I was hoping if I could get a selfie with all of you, please. If not, I lose points.
Oh, sure, as long as,
Do it from a distance, like turn around and we'll wave.
well, that's,
We go
we can stand up there. I'm willing to walk up there for a second.
I just thought you were here
I
for
want
fun.
to.
Okay.
I think that'd be better for her professor, like, then she didn't.
What school do you go to?
I go to Cal State Northridge.
Oh,
that's
it's
my alma
college.
mater.
Oh,
I'm a
okay, I thought you were
journalist
high
student.
school.
Matadors.
No, I am a matador.
Me too.
Stand inside?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Well, it makes it more real when we're up here.
All right, turn around.
Need to
Okay,
make
and
faces or
1,
no?
2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right.
I approve.
Come back anytime.
Yeah, thank you.
I used to. I moved to Alhambra, but I used to live in San Diego for 8 years.
All right. Is there anyone else that would like to address council or take selfies? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Next item is city manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I'll make this brief. You've heard way too much from me tonight. But unfortunately, we did hear from the Vector Control District that we just had our first test come back for a West Nile virus mosquito. That's not rare for our area. There are over 150 in the whole valley. We're one of the last cities to have that. So that's kind of good news, but just a reminder to the public mostly to empty out all that standing water, to make sure the pools are maintained, and to make sure you're doing everything you can to keep the mosquito population down. We will be pushing out social media information over the next couple of days to remind our residents of that. And I don't know, Councilwoman Menchaca, if you being the representative on that board, if you wanted to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Mark. So, yeah, as our city manager mentioned, there's many cities in San Gabriel Valley who have tested positive, and if it makes anyone feel any better, we have one city that has at least 50 tested mosquitoes with West Nile virus. We have some with 25, and we at this point only have one. So that is somewhat comforting, but it still means that we still have to be diligent. I actually had a phone call last week from one of the residents, and they saw my name under the mosquito and vector control district. So of course, I said, oh, I know that person. So she called me right away. So this is open to everyone. If you are going through a really rough stage with mosquitoes, in their case, they're getting severely ill, because everyone is different. One out of 6 people who get bitten by a West Nile virus mosquito will have symptoms. So most of us will not have the symptoms. But in their case, not that they got that, but the mosquitoes themselves were relentless, and they were having to go to the hospital. So anybody could go onto the district website for the mosquito and vector control, and you can request a property consultation, free for anyone. And these residents, they made that request online. They had somebody come out. They actually did not only their property, but the neighbors, because it became a neighborhood issue. And they found that there was a bird bath that was neglected, and that's where all of them were congregating. And so they've been able to clean that out. There are some swimming pools, and just so everybody knows, the vector control, they do this every year. They investigate all the pools. This summer in June, I'm wearing so many hats right now. The Vector Control issued 22 violations in San Gabriel, and they work with the city to make sure that those pools are cleaned out and it doesn't become a hazard to anyone. So there is a lot of different ways. If you host a neighborhood watch meeting, you can invite somebody from the Vector Control, and they will do a presentation and give you ideas, ways to minimize the number of mosquitoes in your neighborhood. So there's a lot of resources out there. You just need to take the initiative. And of course, you can always email me if you have any questions. But go to the San Gabriel Valley Mosquito and Vector Control, and you'll see everything is there. And we're a nice batch, group of people, and we're doing the best we can. But we really need everybody to do their part. So thank you.
That's it. All right. Next item is council comments and conference or meeting reports. Who would like to lead off?
Sure, I just have one quick thing. On September 12th, I attended the San Gabriel Employees Health Fair, and I want to thank the staff for coordinating it. It was a great event. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Wu.
Oh, I have nothing to report. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, I wanted to thank Councilmember Ting and Wu for attending the 9/11 memorial that we had at the fire station. And so it's been 22 years now. And then second, I wanted to make sure we get some clarification here. The Colorado Boulevard is a newspaper. I don't even know if blogs even exist, so you might be dating yourself. But they're actually celebrating their 10th anniversary, and it is a real newspaper. Here it is. And so congratulations to the Colorado Boulevard for having 10 years in multiple cities, 5 years in print, 10 years online. And they service Pasadena, Altadena, Sierra Madre, South Pasadena, San Marino, San Gabriel, and Alhambra. So congrats to the Colorado Boulevard. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So I don't have any comments tonight. With that, we have no closed session. We will adjourn at 8:41 p.m. to the next meeting, which is October 3rd, 2023 at 6:30 p.m.